Joining me now is Dr. Andrew Forrest, the chairman of Fortescue Metals and Fortescue Future Industries. Good morning, Dr. Foster. Fortescue Metals has pledged to reach net zero by 2030, ahead of even some of your larger competitors. Explain to our viewers first, why is a big mining group making this strategic shift, and how will you be hitting those targets? Maybe give us some examples of initiatives or applications helping you to achieve this operationally.
That's some really great questions. We're making this shift because we believe it's great for our shareholders, great for our investors, and certainly all our employees. We have 18,000 employees. They're cheering for it, NASA. So we know this shift is right. We know it will lower our operating costs, it will increase our margins and make our product more attractive. Now, how are we doing it, Dan? Well, we did look a little into the abyss when we first started. We knew that we had to invent fuels and systems which could inject green ammonia into ship engines, one of the most dreadfully polluting industries in the world, and keep that ship engine running super efficiently, but now with zero pollution. Now, Dan, we did that. We went through the same journey, scary journey. You're talking fundamental science and engineering, breakthrough technology. We did the same with trains. We did the same with trucks. We knew we could do it for fixed plant. We calculated every single step, Dan, from the engineering to the financing as to how to get there by 2030. And we knew in the end, those steps would lower our operating costs, make us more efficient, and certainly become the employee of choice around the world.
Fortescue's Scope 3 emissions, most of which comes from the steel manufacturing process of your iron ore output, were more than 250 million tons in the 2021 fiscal year. This compares to a Scope 1 and 2 that stood at 2.2 million tons only. So what are your targets with regards to Scope 3, and how are you planning to nudge your customers along?
Well, look, NASA, it's a great point. If you add up BHP, Rio Tinto, Vale and Fortescue, the four big players in global iron ore, our Scope 3 emissions begin to rival Russia. You know, this is a really serious problem, NASA, but therein lies the fabulous opportunity. We're watching the mining industry following Fortescue and going green. We've seen another Australian mining company declare they'll be green by 2030. We've seen Rio Tinto say they'll be 50% green by 2030. It's catching on. And of course, with our customers are watching what their key core suppliers are doing, going green, and saying, well, how will you help us? Well, the answer, of course, in the steel sector is that there's two ways to make steel, to reduce iron ore to iron and therefore make steel from it. One is with the dirty, polluting, global warming medium of coal. And the other also generates enormous amount of heat, reduces iron ore directly to iron so you can make steel, and that's hydrogen. And if that hydrogen is made from purely green sources, then of course it's completely useless if it's made from fossil fuel. But if it's hydrogen made from purely green sources, you can put that into your furnaces. You turn your iron ore into iron just as efficiently. You generate heat just as efficiently, but all that comes up your chimney is water, pure water, as opposed to carbon dioxide and other pollutants which come from coal. So we're giving our customers not only the iron ore in the future, but also the hydrogen to reduce that iron ore and make steel from it.
Dr. Forrest, you've expressed your skepticism with regards to carbon capture and storage. True, it still hasn't proven itself commercially yet, but it is improving in that respect, which could mean that it could become viable in the near future, just like other developing clean energy technologies that could emerge. So why the skepticism?
Dan, look, I just want to question the premise you used. It is not becoming viable. The only thing viable is the furious nature of the politicians and chief executives of fossil fuel companies saying, it's about to happen, it's about to happen. Now, we've heard that for 20 years. We've seen carbon capture and storage, or now more cynically, carbon capture use and storage, blow up tens of billions of dollars, waste decades, stopping the world getting on with doing what it should do and can do and is so much more viable. And that's get green energy going. Stop the use of fossil fuel. Stop the use of coal, which is now polluting our planet, oil, which is destroying our planet. We can do this now. So just talking about carbon capture and storage, hey, this will work eventually. It's just pushing the ball down the road, and we actually don't have time. I'm saying to chief executives and politicians, if you're not across the science, you're not serving your shareholders, you're not serving your civilians and your voters, get across the science and realize if you're half a litre, you'll be turning and turning quickly, because the world is warming quicker than scientific consensus. Time is running out. But I say this further, NASA. We have the technology now, all through the fossil fuel industry countries, to create more energy and not harm the planet at all than you could ever do from fossil fuel. Take that fabulous opportunity, show your people you can do it, and show your children that you care about their future just as much as your own.
The green energy shift would be a boon, Dr. Forrest, for miners and metal producers such as Fortescue Metals. But couldn't this green mining boom be as damaging to the environment as current fossil fuel emissions are, if not even more, given the huge mining needs of this boom?
I think you make a really great point. Now, if we reward bad behaviour by not encouraging mining companies to go green, when you're watching Fortescue go green in front of your eyes, you're watching us now building the projects to create the hydrogen, to create the ammonia, to create the green electricity. So there's nothing wrong in how we make the lithium, the copper, the iron, everything we need for the boom, because it's green. That process took no carbon, no, much worse, even methane or natural gas. Now, we need to be saying to the global mining industry, go green and go green at speed, because we need to consume your products, but we need to make sure that you produce it responsibly. And then don't buy off those companies who are lazy, fat, useless and dumb, who are not using the technology which is out there now to turn your organisation green. If you're a mining company, you now know you can go green. Therefore, you should be naming the date, creating the strategy, informing your shareholders and informing your workers. They'll love you for it, and go green.
Carbon credits and carbon offset markets are beginning to take off globally. Certainly in the EU they have, where their prices have been flying high of late. But a lot of accusations of greenwashing have been leveled at these markets. I'm interested to hear your take on this, Dr. Forrest.
Yeah, look, I do think we need an independent authority which is not funded by the customers, which declares what actually is a proper carbon credit, because there is a whole heap of fraud, of greenwashing going on. People think it's okay if they can get away with it. If they get caught, oh, tut, tut. Actually, I don't think they should feel guilty about it. I think they should feel really serious shame that they've used carbon credits and other facilities to greenwash, to say they're doing the right thing when they're not. It's like blue hydrogen. If you are producing hydrogen from a fossil fuel and saying, oh, look, we're doing the right thing, we're setting the world green. Actually, no, you're not. Even if carbon capture and storage worked, which it doesn't, but let's assume, NASA, that it does. Even if it worked, the fugitive emissions all through the process to take the fossil fuel out of the ground and string it through the process to make hydrogen from, a very convoluted process. You have lost so many emissions in that process that even if CCS and CCUS worked, the hydrogen you're burning is so much worse for the planet than if you just burnt the coal or the fossil fuel in the first place. So I'm saying stop the greenwashing, stop trying to snow the population, stop trying to gaslight the population with greenwashing, with blue hydrogen, with any other device which is trying to make you look good when in fact you're doing bad.
Let's talk about hydrogen. Hydrogen has consistently failed to take off as a fuel for decades. People have joked that hydrogen is the fuel of the future, and it always will be. It's a difficult gas to handle safely. The electrolyzers are still too expensive, And a hydrogen economy will require hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure investments. Why then are you taking such a big bet on it? Why will this time be any different?
Now, so it took around 100 years for the steam engine to actually revolutionize the world by being put into a train. So everything is about timing. The internal combustion engine was able to save London from being smothered by horse manure when they just couldn't do anything about the horse manure. They needed to get transport around London, but unfortunately, horses emit manure. Now, along came the internal combustion engine. It took a while to get in, just like the fossil fuel sector took a long while to actually go from the greasy tar in sand to actually refine fossil fuel. It took many, many decades. Now, every great technology has its own time, and technology changes massively. We didn't know how to store hydrogen. We didn't know how to transport hydrogen. We didn't know how quickly to add nitrogen to it to make ammonia, which you can transport everywhere in the world. All of these technologies have changed and they're changing rapidly. We didn't know how to make hydrogen very cheaply out of green energy. Now we do. One thing is for sure, NASA, is that fossil fuels, even before the Ukraine war, were trending up in cost. Even nuclear has this unfortunate conundrum that the more people who build nuclear power plants, the more expensive the nuclear power becomes. You have the exact opposite, NASA, with green energy. It is increasing in volume. It can increase in volume almost limitlessly, and its operating costs are falling. Its price to the customer is falling. Now, it's really dangerous, NASA, to get in the road of the trend. And those people who trot out those excuses you've just used are people who are trying to tell you, NASA, hey, look, fossil fuel will be okay at least till I retire, then it'll be someone else's problem. But I want those then retirees to look back on their careers and know, hey, you just helped destroy the planet. You just helped destroy the future of your kids. So now is the time to move. We have the technology, we have the energy, we have the political will, we have the capital. Let's go.
My last question, Dr. Forrest, you've made several visits to our region in the last few months. We know that countries such as Morocco, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Oman all have plans for green hydrogen. How do you view these plans, and do you see any investment or cooperation opportunities rising here in the region for you?
Dan, that enthusiasm in some significant measure comes from our own support for green energy. We have been studying it now for 10 years. We've been visiting these countries, even during the middle of the pandemic. We got on the road and we visited countries all over the world. We explained to them that they have the power now. We can bring in the technology, we can bring in the capital. We can employ their local businesses, we can employ their local people, and we can have them become green energy independent, have them become a sovereign, independent nation of energy. Now, I'm delighted to hear you tick off all these countries who may have traditionally relied on fossil fuel and acknowledge that actually from Saudi Arabia to Morocco, there is literally oceans, which will never be exhausted, of green energy. What you have here now, NASA, is oil versus water. Unfortunately, when you burn oil, it goes straight to carbon dioxide. It's creating heat on the way through, but it's polluting and cooking your planet. Now, if you use water with green electricity, it produces even more energy and goes straight back to water. This is the solution, NASA.
I thank you very much for taking the time this morning and joining on the show. I hope to see you soon in Dubai as well. Thank you very much.